So what we have here is called a linear programming problem, and there's quite a few things to keep track of. One is going to be students, so I'll just use capital S for students. And then there's also chaperones, so I'll use a capital C for chaperones. Now it says for the students, they want to take at least 400 students, so in other words, S needs to be at least 400 students. And the chaperones, there can be no more than 36. So for the chaperones, no more than means less than or equal to 36 chaperones. All right, that's one piece of the puzzle. Next up, there's either the possibility for bus, so I'm going to use a B for bus, and the bus can carry 40 students. So basically, if you do 40 times B, and B is the number of buses, then that's how many students in total will be on the buses. And there's also the possibility of taking a van, which can take 8 students. So if you add 8 people on every van, that's going to be the total number of students, and then that has to be bigger than or equal to the 400. Okay, now I need to go back and look at the buses and vans again, and this time look at the chaperones. All right, so for each bus, it requires 3 chaperones. So 3 chaperones on each bus. And for the van, it just takes 1 chaperone, so 1 on each van. And then in total, that has to stay less than or equal to 36. All right. Now this is basically describing an area in the first quadrant. So I could start graphing this in the first quadrant. And if I use the first equation and basically just make a little table of values, so I'll just pretend that it's an equal sign. So 40b plus 8v, if you set that equal to 400, and then, so I'm going to use b as if it's the x-axis and v as if it's the y-axis. So just make a little table of values right here and say, well, if b equals 0, this would be gone, and then just divide both sides by 8, and v equals 50. And then back up, and what if you had 0 vans? So this would be gone, divide both sides by 40, and then that means that b would equal 10. So that basically gives me some points on the graph. So if I have b equals 0 and v equals 50, that would be this point right here. And then 10 comma 0 would be this point right here. And so we would then get this line like this. All right, then for the other equation, so for this equation, let me just make a little more space right here. So if I just say, what if 3b plus 1v was equal to 36, so I could find out where the line goes, and again, just make a little table of values. And if b equals 0, this would be gone, and that means v equals 36. And then what if the v equals 0? So this would be gone. If you divide both sides by 3, then b equals 12. And then graph that information. So 36 would be right here for the vans. And the other one is a 12, comma 0. And then connect those 2 points. So we could go through and pick some points and make sure that we're shading the right area, but it basically does not make any sense that they would be over here taking way more buses and vans that they need to. So they want to take the least amount of vans and buses that they can. So that means that we actually want to keep it as small as possible. So that would be this region right here. And the only thing is, there's this one point that I don't know. Where is that point? So that's basically where this equation and this equation intersect. So if I use this one and I solve for v, so just subtract 3b from both sides, it's going to say v equals 36 minus 3b. And then take that and substitute it into the other equation. We'll then have 40b plus 8 times v, and then replace v with 36 minus 3b. And then that top equation in the upper right of the screen says that it equals 400. So then let me just distribute this. So we've got 40b and then plus, how much is 8 times 36? 8 times 3 is 240, and another 48. 240 plus 48 is 288. Or you could use a calculator. And then distribute the 8 times negative 3, and then it equals 400. So if you collect the b's together, that's going to be a grand total of 16b. And then subtract 288 from each side. And 400 minus 288, that would be 112. And then just divide both sides by 16, and b equals 112 divided by 16. So rather than switching the screen to a calculator, I'll just do that on my calculator on the side. 112 divided by 16 is 7. So it's 7 buses. And then substitute that back into that equation to find out that v will equal 36 minus 3 times 7. So 36 minus 21. And that equals 15. Okay, so now I'm done with my picture. This point right here where I have the question mark, that is actually 7, 15. All right, we've set up the picture, and now we need to talk about the money. So let me just clean this up real fast. And what about the money? Because of course they want to minimize the cost. So I'll just use M for money. So when talking about the buses, they cost $1,200 to rent. So it's going to cost $1,200 for every bus, plus it's going to cost $100 for a van. So $100 for a van. And then the question is basically out of this point, this point, this one, and this one, which one is going to create the smallest amount of money? Well, this point right here is actually 0, 0, which means they would have 0 buses and 0 vans. So you would save a lot of money that way. But if you don't have any way to get to the aquarium, you don't really have a trip. So it's not going to be 0, 0. So it's basically going to be one of the other 3 points that is the winner. So now I'll just make a little table of values. So if I have this many buses, if I have this many vans, then it's going to cost this much money. And this point is saying you have 36 vans and 0 buses, and then we'll plug that in and find out how much money. This one is saying 7 buses and 15 vans, and then we'll plug that in and find out how much money. And then finally this one is saying just take 10 buses and 0 vans, and then how much money. So I just need to find out what these 3 are, and whichever one's the smallest, that's going to be the winner. So for the first one right here, if you substitute a 0, that means a 0 for B, that means we would have 1,200 times 0 plus 100 times the vans, 36. And then this would be 0. And so the amount of money will be 36 with 2 zeros at the end. So then I can fill in these question marks. So the first one is $3,600. Now use the 7 and the 15. So the money, if it's 1,200 and they use 7 buses plus $100 and they use 15 vans, then how much is that? Well, 1,200 times 7 is 8,400 plus 15 with 2 zeros at the end. So if you add those two, it equals 9,900. So that seems like it's the most expensive way to go. And then, oh my gosh, logic just prevailed on me. And I'm like, if a bus costs 1,200 and a van only costs 100, you should probably just take vans. That's a lot cheaper. And as you could see so far, the one with the vans is winning. Oh well. I mean, oh well, I should have thought of that a long time ago, but I didn't. Okay, anyway, the last one. So if you only take buses, then that's going to be $1,200 per bus, and you're going to need to take 10 buses, and then 0 vans, so that's plus 0. And then that is a 1,200 with an extra 0, so that's actually the most expensive, 12,000. So the winner was actually just taking all vans. So use 36, oops, that's not 36. Use 36 vans and 0 buses.